Oh hi, just wanted to add a quick disclaimer before you watch this video. This video will go into themes of animal abuse and euthanasia, so if that isn't your cup of tea, you might want to look elsewhere for good content. Alright, cool, thanks, enjoy the video. Let's go back to last year. And by that, I mean December of last year, so it ain't exactly that far back. On December 11th, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, released this tweet to the masses. Yeah, that crop is very fortunate because there's gore under there. The caption reads, if Musume Pretty Derby were honest, your favorite horse girl doesn't get a comeback arc. One failed event, and the race is over forever, just like what happened to the real Silence Suzuka. Obviously, this tweet references the unfortunate fate of the real Silence Suzuka, a Japanese racehorse that died by means of euthanasia. Of course, PETA being PETA, this post garnered very harsh backlash, with many trainers saying how PETA's doing jack shit about this issue, and they're defaming and trivializing Suzuka's death for their profit. Some have even taken to reporting this post straight to Cygames, the company with the rights to Musume, saying how it's infringing on their policies. However, their underlying message about the ethics of horse racing is rather prevalent in this post. According to the Jockey Club, as of 2024, the overall fatality rate for horses due to injury on the racetrack has been around 1.11 for every 1,000 starts. Although lower than the past years, one fatality per 1,000 is still non-zero, and the use of horses for sport has been deemed rather unethical. So yes, while I do think this post was in poor taste, and PETA could have just not posted this, I think the message is clear. Horse racing as a whole is a bit dubious at times. So, out of all the playable Umusume characters in both Global and JP, two racers stand out as the only ones to be euthanized right after a fatal injury on the track. Yep, only two, out of a total of 122 playable Umusume. And wouldn't you know it, their appearance in Global made their story more well known. Let's start with the one PETA referenced, and the one we've been talking about this entire time. Silence Suzuka was foaled on the 1st of May 1994 by Sunday Silence out of Wakia. Despite the fact that his dad was the Sunday Silence of the heyday back then, Suzuka was chestnut colored, and people thought that, and I quote, he won't run because he isn't black. This rumor would soon be dispelled by one Ishino Sunday, another chestnut child of Sunday Silence that actually won a G1 race. During his early years of training in Nibutani and later in Rito, Suzuka was still being doubted, especially because of his small stature. They just thought he wouldn't be able to break through any pack from that size. But what he lacked in size, he made up in navigation and speed. And it's this speed that made him win his first G1 race at Hanshin Racecourse.
エアグルーヴはちょうど6番手から7番手あたり、その後ろからシルクジャスティスでありますが、メジロブライトは後ろから2頭目といった展開、ローゼンカバリーがしんがりです。13頭が縦長になって、さあ第2コーナーであります。今年もあなたの、そして私の夢が走る宝塚記念でありますが、さあエアグルーヴは6番手から7番手あたり、先頭は1番人気、1番人気、一番たくさんの人が夢をかけたサイレンス鈴鹿が先頭です。その差はどうでしょうか。大体58秒ぐらいで 1000m を通過。さあここにメジロドーベル、光栄コスモス、差が開いていくぞ。1番のゴーイング鈴鹿、そしてテイエムオーラシ、10番のミッドナイトベッド、エアグルーヴちょっと手が動いている。それから4番のステイゴールドがいて、優勢ドッグプラン、それからサンライズプランが満を持している。メジロブライトがいた、メジロブライト、そして7番のシルクジャスティス、今日はブライトよりもジャスティスの方が後ろだ。そして8番ローゼンカバリー、さあサイレンス鈴鹿1頭が飛ばして、あと12頭が固まった。しかし差が縮まってきた。それほど大逃げではありません。まもなく第4コーナー、サイレンス鈴鹿、さあどうなんだ、気合はどうなんだ、未来。さあ後続は差を詰めてきた。そしてブライトはどこへ行ったのか。エアグルーヴ、メジロブライトはしんがり、メジロブライトはしんがりだ。メジロブライトピンチ、メジロブライト大ピンチ。サイレンス鈴鹿先頭、ステイゴールド来た。ステイゴールドが差を詰めてきた。そしてサンライズクラック差を詰める。もう一頭シルクジャス 戦2着ステイゴールド
Suzuka would go on to win the 1998 Takarazuka Kinen, being 3/4 of a horse length, or a tenth of a second, ahead of the runner-up Stay Gold. Bit of a small fun fact for the viewers who don't know, that's Goldship's dad. If you know, you know. Not every day you get a fun fact anyways. Now, with this G1 win under Suzuka's belt, everyone thought he would be ready for the big leagues. He's thinking about going for the Triple Crown now. This is Tokyo Racecourse, one of the bigger racetracks across Japan. Sure, Hanshin has its fair share of graded races, but Tokyo holds 2 of the 3 legs of the Autumn Triple Crown, the one Suzuka would be going after. This award consists of 3 races, the Autumn Tennosho and Japan Cup, which are normally held in Tokyo, and the Arima Kinen, which is usually held in Nakayama. For now, however, let's focus on the Tennosho. This is actually not Suzuka's first tango with this race. In '97, he ran the same race and achieved 6th place. No matter, he actually won the Takarazuka Kinen this time around. What's the worst that could happen this year, huh?
体制完了です。スタートしました。サイレンスズカ内からこうスタートを切りました。ゆっくりと出ていきます。そしてサイレントハンターオフサイドトラップ内を回りまして TM 大嵐そして外を回りましてこれをかわす勢いでステイゴールドが上がっていきました。あとは中段にランニングゲールメジロブライトシルクジャスティスその内側を通っています。さらに外からグルメフロンティア上がっていきました。サンライズフラッグそしてゴーイング鈴鹿4馬身5馬身と相手ローゼンカバリー最高峰です。ぐんぐん行きました。向こう上面に入るところサイレンスズカ先頭です。リードが10馬身ぐらいこれを追ってサイレントハンター2番手また6馬身7馬身と開きまして3番手集団オフサイドトラップが上がっていきました。あとは2馬身ぐらいで外を回りましてステイゴールドの体勢です。インコースから TM 大嵐メジロブライトは中段の位置ランニングゲールがいてそしてその内側からグルメフロンティア上がっていきました。シルクジャスティスそしてサンライズフラッグが後方から2頭目最高峰がゴーイング鈴鹿ローゼンカバリーが最高峰です。縦長の展開で残り 1000m を今通過57秒ぐらいで通過していきました。先頭はサイレンスズカリードは10馬身ぐらいあります。これを追って2番手集団ですがサイレントハンター2番手3番手ですがそれから10馬身ぐらい空きましてオフサイドトラップメジロブライトが追って800の標識を通過その後ろ早くも手が動きます。ステイゴールドが下がりました。あとは2馬身ぐらいで TM 大嵐そしてその外8枠のランニングゲールグルメフロンティア4個なくもっと故障です。サイレンスズカどうやら故障発生今度は変わってサイレントハンター先頭で4コーナーから直線に入りました。オフサイドトラップメジロブライトオフサイドトラップメジロブライトさらに外側からランニングゲール大外がサンライズフラッグ突っ込んでくるオフサイドトラップだオフサイドトラップ先頭に立った2番手メジロブライトサイレントハンターいっぱいになってステイゴールド突っ込んでくる大外からサンライズフラッグランニングゲールオフサイドだ200を通過オフサイド先頭オフサイドトラップ先頭だステイゴールド内から追っているオフサイドトラップステイゴールド 100m 通過オフサイドトラップステイゴールドオフサイドトラップオフサイドトラップゴールイン2番手ステイゴールド
The winner of the 1998 Autumn Tennis Show was Offside Trap, with Stay Gold once again in second place over a length behind him. As for Suzuka, well...
どうやら右後ろということになるんでしょうかね。
In the middle of the race, Suzuka was very far ahead of second place, 15 lengths ahead according to various sources. However, he started to slow down before the last corner onto the final stretch. The veterinarian's prognosis of his injury seemed rather bleak. His injury was terminal. Suzuka would not be able to run as well as before, and it might worsen his health if he was still standing and walking around like this. Suzuka's team had no choice but to euthanize him on November 1st, 1998, a few days after this tennis show. What a story to start off with. It really is a heavy story to stomach, but actually let's talk about that later. How about we talk about the other horse I was alluding to at the start? This is Kyoto Racecourse, another JRA racetrack with tons of G1 and other graded races to its name. It used to have a very interesting and formidable challenger in the first half of the 90s that did very well in these races. That horse was named Rice Shower, and coincidentally, he's the second one we're going to talk about here, so let's just jump into his racing history now. Born on March 5th, 1989, Rice Shower was foaled by Real Shaddai out of Lilac Point. Further back in his pedigree, Lilac Point's father was Marzenski, and Real Shadai's father was Roberto, whose father was Hail to Reason, which makes Rice Shower apparently cousins with— oh, are you kidding me? Yeah, if this series keeps going on, we're bound to expect Sunday Silence down the line every single time we talk about the pedigree. Long story, don't ask, just know that almost every Japanese racehorse apparently has ties to this one horse in one way or another. Back to Rice Shower. Now before we can talk about the deal between this horse and Kyoto, let's move first to another racecourse for some earlier context. Now, Rice Shower's debut in 91 was nothing too interesting, just his maiden race and a few low-grade races. But it's in the 92 Spring Stakes, which was held in Nakayama Racecourse, that's this course we've zoomed in on, where he finally met his match, in the form of—
が離れましてスタートしました。綺麗に揃いました。タイガーエーストップが足がつきません。先行争い内から押しましてミホノブルボン出ていきます。連れて桜爆心王両馬が抜けました。3番手争いは外を通りましてマイネルトゥルースが上がっていきます。そして清少マインドあと固まりましたダッシュ不動、さらにその内からはマーメイドタバンライスシャワーと後位グループ固まって第1コーナーカーブ。ノーザンコンダクトは現在後方から4番手の位置、神のエルフがちょっと後退しています。早くも第2コーナーのカーブを迎えますが、抜けましたのは1番のミホノブルボン、リードが2馬身、桜爆心王2番手、マイネルトゥルース3番手、その外からダッシュ不動あるいは内をついてライスシャワー4番手並んで第2コーナーカーブから向こう上面の直線です。あと 1200m、 そしてその後方でやりますが内々を回りましてマーメイドタバン、さらにその外には白北や清少マインドが続いています。そして遅れましてリワードガルソン、その後の後方グループマチカネタンホイザーとノーザンコンダクトは並んでおります。あと 1000m を切りました。そしてその後方からはタイガーエースが続いています。白北新山、そしてその後方でマイネルコートあるいは内々を回りまして神のエルフが後方から上がっていきます。800もすでに通過、第3コーナーのカーブに入ってまいります。先手を取りましたミホノブルボンが飛ばします。リードが1馬身半、2番手桜爆心王が続いています。その後4馬身空きました。600を切ったところで内からスルスルとまた上がってきたダッシュ不動、さらにその外にマイネルトゥルースでやりますが、あとマチカネタンホイザーが外を回って上がってまいりました。連れて外からノーザンコンダクト、オーストはタイガーエースと後位固まって400の常識を通過、ほとんど一段で第4コーナーカーブから直線に向きました。内を通りますミホノブルボンが先頭でまた突き放した。リードが4馬身、これは強い。そしてその後2番手争いは大混戦であります。外からライスシャワーあるいはその外をつきましてはもう一頭上がってきた。これがマチカネタンホイザー200もすでに通過している。さあ逃げ切り体勢濃厚となったミホノブルボン、圧勝5馬身6馬身7馬身リード。2番手争いには5番のマーメイドタバン、先頭はミホノブルボンゴールイン、2番手マーメイドタバン、3番手にはダッシュ不動、その外にライス。
This is Mihono Bourbon, another famous Japanese racehorse who basically dominated most of his races during his 91 stint on the turf. He goes by a few nicknames, those being Chestnut, Super Express, and Cyborg, both for his machine-like ability to handle slopes and to stay as the frontrunner for most of the race. And these are races that would go on for 2 to 3 kilometers, at least in his later races, which we'll talk about in a bit. But he's definitely quite the unit Rice Shower would eventually pick as his rival. After the Spring Stakes, the 92 season would be chock full of this rivalry, even if that rivalry is mostly Bourbon getting first and Rice Shower lagging behind. Here's the lowdown first. Rice would tango with Bourbon a total of 5 times. As we just saw for the Spring Stakes, Bourbon finished first, Rice Shower 4th. Second race they would meet at is at the Satsuki Show, a G1 race now. Bourbon wins again, Rice Shower 8th. Okay, not a great improvement, in fact it's quite the opposite of an improvement. Improvement, detriment, who cares? Let's just make Rice take a breather from the rivalry and run an extra race first. And still 8th. Well, whatever, next race, Japanese Derby, and hey, look at that, second place for Rice Shower. Now that's what I like to call an improvement. Bourbon still got first though. Again. Wow, why did you pick this horse to be a rival again? Anyways, you might as well look towards the future. These two are planning to duke it out in the upcoming Kikuka Show, which requires a good placement in one of its 2 trial races. Rice Shower participated in both and only got 2nd place again. Wow. Not better, but still in contention for the Kikuka Show. And Bourbon did, oh my god, really? He got first in the later race? From Rice's perspective, you wouldn't think Bourbon somehow missed the first trial race by accident. You'd think, oh fuck, he didn't even have to try to win that race. I'm fucked. Well, let's see how fucked you really are, Rice Shower. Kikuka Show is coming up soon, and a big crowd is rooting for you. All the way here in Kyoto Racecourse, as it so happens.
青い帽子日本のブルボン好スタート。ボーガンどうするんだ。いったいったいった。ボーガンがかわしていくのか。外からかわしていった。東映ボーガンがかわして先頭に立ちました。注目の先陣争いは東映ボーガンの方がかわして3番シンくらいのリードをつけました。ミホノブルボンを抑えて2番手。これでも腹に立っているのと同じでありますが、前に馬を見てレースをするのは新馬戦以来2度目であります。そして3番手でありますが、東映ボーガン先頭、ミホノブルボンが2番手、ポツンポツンポツン。それから4番の名将セントロが3番手で、これから1周目の第4コーナーに向かいます。10番のマチカネ・ランソイゼが4番手でありますが、ミホノブルボンが差を詰めてまいりました。完全といった東映ボーガン先頭であります。東映ボーガン先頭2馬身くらいの差がありましょうか。ミホノブルボンが2番手、ミホノブルボン2番手であります。これが2番手のミホノブルボンで場内から大歓声が上がります。名将セントロ3番手、マチカネ・タンコイザ、ライシャワーは5番手。おっと今ちょうど59秒ぐらい、 1000m は59秒から1分というところでまずまずではないかと思いますが、18頭は非常に縦に長いレース展開になりました。先頭からちょっと整理をしましょうか。第1コーナー右にカーブを取ります。東映ボーガンが先頭。いつミホノブルボン、2番手のミホノブルボンがこの東映ボーガンをかわしていくか。7番のミホノブルボンと、そして小島貞弘であります。今日は一人旅にはなりません。2番手であります。そして3番手は依然として名将セントロかマチカネ・タンホイザが4番手。これは7番のミホノブルボンで2番手、名将セントロ、マチカネ・タンホイザ、その後ろにライスシャワーが続いているんではないかと思います。ライスシャワーであります。5番手であります。ご覧のように上段の画面で見ますと非常に縦に長い展開になりました。淡々としたペース。6番がグラールストーン、その後ろに17番のセントライトシティであります。それからヤマニンミラクル、内を通って16番のスーパーソブリン関東馬、2番のメイキングデシオであります。14番のバンブージェネシスがいる。それから5番の若さファイヤーでありますが、18番の第一ジョイフルがいました。それからヤングライジン、そして9番のダンディーバーンでありまして、18頭が縮まった山の上。しかしミホノブルボンはまだ2番手、満を持している感じであります。ミホノブルボンは2番手、満を持している感じ。さあ馬体を合わしに行く。今日もちょっと下を出している。今度は名将セントロが来た。前に敵がいて後ろからも名将セントロが追い上げてくるが、ようやくここでミホノブルボンが先頭に立った。ミホノブルボン先頭で第4コーナーをカーブする。あと 400m だ。どっからでも何でも来いという感じか。ミホノブルボン、ライスシャワーが襲いかかってくる。外からライスシャワー、黄色い帽子は待ちかね、タンホイザ。さあミホノブルボン逃げる。外からライスシャワーかわしたか。内から待ちかね、ライスシャワー先頭に立った。ミホノブルボンは3着にならず、ライスシャワーです。という悲鳴に変わりましたゴール前。昨年のレオダー版と同じようにダービーの2着馬が菊花賞を制しました。勝ち時計3分5秒0はレコード。昭和57年にポリスキーが出しました3分5秒4のレコードタイムを破りました。8番のライスシャワーと的場騎手。
Okay, I think this race deserves a bit more context behind it. As you all just saw, Rice Shower did win the 92 Kikukasho. And this win, to put it bluntly, it was something a lot of people were not expecting would happen. For one, given all his past races, Bourbon was elected as the favorite for the race. And it wasn't even close. A large portion of the crowd was rooting for that darn horse. Rice was second favorite, and an unrelated horse for this story, Machkanetan Hoiza, was third favorite. I just wanted to say his name at least once, it's fun. For now, however, seeing that the runner-up favorite won over the uncontested favorite, the audience was notably displeased by the results. Everyone thought the horse that constantly got win after win in every race he participated in would do the same here. Coincidentally, this would also be Bourbon's last race, not because of shame, but because of injuries that he would start to have later down the line. Yup, sad as it may be, the rivalry ends here. Such a shame that it only lasted a year, but hey, at least Rush Hour got there in the end. The 93 season would have another interesting race featuring this horse in the form of the Spring Tenno Show, which was coincidentally held at the same racecourse as the aforementioned Kikuka Show. Now, what horse would Rush Shower have to face this time? Oh, I'm guessing more context is in order again? This horse we're focusing on now is named Mejiro McQueen. Yeah, like the car from Cars. The Mejiro family has had a long lineage of winning horses, and McQueen is no exception. Looking at his racing record, after counting for any early races he did, and yikes, that's a lot of wins. 7 graded race wins, and back-to-back wins in the Spring Tenno Show, the exact race Rice is planning to be at as well. In fact, everyone was hoping McQueen would win this race a third time to cement his place in history at that race. Because of this, McQueen would be top favorite, Rice would be second favorite once again. And since I have a limit on how many races I can add before it's considered padding out the video for no reason, I'll just rip the bandage out now. Rice did also win the Spring Tenno Show this year, ending McQueen's streak. It's because of these 2 races that he got the title Black Assassin, because he would kill any hopes and dreams the crowd had for the race. Sadly, this assassin would have some middling performance over the next few years, only a few seconds and thirds for 94, and surprisingly, another Spring Tenno Show win in 95. Now, since all the races Reischauer was winning at were happening in Kyoto Racecourse, why don't we just make him focus on that racetrack for this year? There's only one race happening in Kyoto that he hasn't ran yet, the Takarazuka Kinen for 95. Why don't we try testing the waters there, huh?
スタートしました。17頭がこれから第1コーナーに向かいます。さあ中から何が行きますか。大気ブリザードが出てまいりました。大気ブリザード、そして東洋リファール、ダンツシアトルと前に来ました。さらにはこのグループにネイハイシーザー、そしてダンシングサーパスも前に行こうというところであります。さあその後はやや固まった感じになりまして、第1コーナーから第2コーナーに向かいます。桜千歳大あたりは後ろから数えて3頭目を追走しています。この辺り先頭に立ちましたのは東洋リファールです。リードが2馬身ぐらい、そして大気ブリザード2番手、3番手は半馬審査、ダンツシアトルが行きました。4番手半馬審査、ネイハイシーザー4番手、5番手は内をついたダンシングサーパス、エアダブリンもこのグループ、外からは藤山健山が行きまして、2コーナーから向こう上面へ。1馬審査で中段はインターマイウェイが行っています。そして内からはアイルトンシンボリ、あるいはその中はインターライナーであります。その後に1馬審査、鳥海キャロルが行きました。55Z、 あるいは富志のポルンガがその内をついています。後続集団1馬審査、ダイスシャワー、ダイスシャワーと外からはさあ桜千歳王、その内からは成田大臣と言っています。これが後続集団、そして1馬身半差で萩野リアルキングは最高峰でありまして、各馬第3コーナー、これから上り詰めて下りにかかろうというところ。先頭は東洋リファール、そしてリードが1馬身、タリッキブリザードが2番手、ネイハイシーザー3番手、ダンツシアトル4番手、エアダブリングを来始めた。外をついてさあ各馬が一気に差を詰めてまいります。おっとダイスシャワーどうした、ダイスシャワーどうした。
The winner of the Takarazuka Kinen for 95 would be Daisu Seattle, not Reischauer. In fact, Rice over here would not even be able to finish the race after this injury. He just experienced a fatal open fracture and dislocation on his left foreleg. Unlike a human's leg, which can still heal after a fracture given enough time, a fracture for a horse would be hard to recover from. Out of options, Reischauer was euthanized on the track right after the race. Now, I know the stories of these 2 race horses are very sad and depressing, and they do show the darker side of horse racing as a whole. But before we get too crazy with that, let's talk statistics. As I said earlier in this video, 2 out of 112 horse girls from the horse girl game were notably euthanized after a fatal incident on the track. And that ratio does make sense. According to the Japan Racing Association as of 2024, out of 5,399 retired racehorses, 112 have already died. And the JRA seems to have not separated cause of death in this document. The usual cases for death are either due to old age or colic, which is basically what cancer is to humans. It's not euthanasia. This statistic could then conclude that many racehorses in Japan do live a long and normal life, for the most part. A lot of them retire in farms across Japan. However, many of the notable ones retire in farms in the Hokkaido region in particular. The most popular one out of these farms is Yogibo Versailles, which is this place we've currently zoomed in on. They do currently hold 53 racehorses in total, 4 of which have a horse girl counterpart and are playable in-game. Being probably the most popular horse farm in Japan, they have received a ton of help from the community. They were able to raise over 50 million yen, almost 88 million, for renovation, repair, and expansion of their facilities to help care for more incoming retired racehorses. Aside from that farm, Hokkaido also has Big Red Farm, which currently holds Gold Ship, Northern Lake Farm, which currently holds Meisho Doto, and also had a fundraiser to cover damages worth 15 million yen and went well over that goal. Point is, Japan's temperament towards racehorses is on pretty good terms. They care for their horses young, the JRA and NAR make sure the courses are safe for the horses to race on, the owners and trainers have a responsibility to take care of their thoroughbreds. A racehorse in Japan relatively goes unscathed their entire life. The same can't be said about horse racing everywhere else though. Ever since the 2007 Cheltenham Festival, held at the Cheltenham Racecourse grounds, Animal Aid launched Racehorse Death Watch, a site that documents and exposes every on-course thoroughbred fatality in the UK. See, the same festival the year before was responsible for a record-breaking 11 deaths, 9 occurring during racing and 2 occurring later on due to injuries sustained. The fatality rate for that year would then spike up to 1.86%, with the average staying around 0.5%. And here's where Animal Aid comes in. Along with the RSPCA, Animal Aid prides itself with being one of the most established and respected animal rights organizations in the UK. While the RSPCA focuses on more proper care with animals and pets, Animal Aid takes a more PETA-esque stand by protesting about various animal rights issues, with horse racing being one of them. Their reasoning for Racehorse Death Watch is that the horse racing authorities in the UK have failed to put clear and unambiguous horse death information into the public domain, and the Death Watch is meant to be that source. According to the Death Watch, since March of 2007, 3,113 deaths have occurred on British turf, 154 in the last year alone, and Animal Aid still thinks that the actual number of deaths might be higher. In February of 2021, they also started a Death Watch for Irish horses, of which 485 have been killed in that time span. Long story short, outside of Japan, race horses basically have it harder. That's probably why a lot of animal rights groups such as PETA have a big chunk of their community against horse racing, among other animal rights issues. Everything's not all sunshine and rainbows in Japan though. Although the JRA and NAR are the main governing bodies for equestrian events, the Japan government itself barely has any laws regarding animal rights, which is probably where PETA is getting their sick kicks from. The 1973 Act on Welfare and Management of Animals states that it is up to the prefectural governments to enforce these laws, without specific detail on how they should operate or if there are any oversight mechanisms. While the incidents of Rice and Suzuka have been isolated incidents to each other, they might as well have been both oversights by the JRA when it comes to keeping the health of racehorses. And that means there have been more than just these 2 horses. Remember when I said only 2 out of those 122 horse girls in that game have had an injury on the track? I kinda lied. There are 3. This third one, I believe, has had it worse compared to the last 2. You could even say it was quite a miracle that he was able to race. That's right, the horse I'm talking about here is going to be For those not in the know, this horse we're focusing on right now is named KS Miracle. And to be honest with you, I did not know anything about this character until this one friend who is probably a bit too obsessed with this character brought my attention to it. So I thank him for all the info collected about this horse. Chances are you probably didn't know too. The story of KS Miracle isn't that well known in the Musume community because 1, he's stuck in the Japanese version of the game, and 2, he hasn't really made any major appearances. The biggest appearance he's in is in a stage play called Sprinter Story, detailing the Sprinter scene of 91. Sure, it's recently been translated into English, but compared to the stories of Rice Shower and Silence Suzuka, KS Miracle's story is not as well known. At least globally, his story is known quite well in Japan. Once again, I have to give props to this one person I made friends-ish with on Twitter. Without them, I wouldn't have caught wind of this story. And where else to start than at the beginning? Foaled on the 16th of March, 1988, in the state of Kentucky, KS Miracle came from Stutz Blackhawk out of Lady Benfager. Those horses may not sound familiar at all, and that's because Miracle actually came from no notable pedigree. He may have had some ancestry in the form of Native Dancer and Nasrullah, but nothing in his immediate pedigree. In addition, he also had some complications with his legs. All of these factors resulted in Miracle being sold for only $30,000. In a market where similar contemporaries were being sold for millions. And his owner? A guy by the name of Kiyoshi Takada, hence the KS part of his name, which stood for Kiyoshi Service. Miracle was then imported to Japan in 1989, and he contracted Japanese encephalitis, or inflammation of the brain. This, along with the leg problems we discussed earlier, forced Miracle to delay his debut race by over a year. In April of 1991, he finally debuted in a race, a few in Niigata and a few more in Sapporo, where he racked up a pretty sizable record. 3 times he placed first, and 2 times he placed second. In his first graded race, the G3 Centaur Stakes, he was the top favorite, but he placed 13th. Well, he had to make it up somehow, and in the Swan Stakes that year, he did.
スタートしました。ちょっとマイスーパーマンで遅れましたが、その他は一段であります。まだ横に広がっておりますが、第一ルビーが外から、そして内からは大宅ヘリオスが出てまいりました。そして中をついて、さあ一気にレオプラザが2番手、3番手はジョーロワリングと、そしてラッキーギャラ固まりました大優作このグループ。1馬審査で第一ルビーと、そしてその中をついてバリアンテが行きました。さらに外をつきまして、ワイドバトル、あるいはその外からは萩のハイタッチが行っています。ジョーロワリングはやや交代気味であります。KS ミラクル、マイスーパーマンと行きました。半馬審査でトスをついてエイシングウィザードが行っています。第3コーナー下りにかかりました。2馬審査ヤマニングローバル、そして1馬審査でバンブーメモリーは後ろから行きます。さらに内をついてディープグローリーが行きまして、下りにかかりました。コツンと1頭占領役者が置かれています。4コーナーのカーブに近づいてまいりますが、この辺りさあ2頭が固まっています。大タクヘリオスと、そして外をついてレオプラザが2番手から先頭を伺います。さらに外をついて大優作も一気に差を詰めてまいりまして、さあ直線コースに向きました。その後のグループからは何が伸びてくるか。マイスーパーマン、さらに外をついて、さあ5枠の1頭が突っ込んでまいりました。バリエンテであります。バリエンテ、さらにはエイシンウィザートも突っ込んでまいります。さあわずかに大優作か大タクヘリオスか、 KS ミラクル内から、KS ミラクルが内から第1ルビー KS ミラクル、エイシンウィザートが外から前2頭並んだところで今ゴール。 KS ミラクルが内から外第1ルビーであります。
First place in a graded race. Of course, it's just a G2 race, but still, that's apparently better than the other horses Mr. Kiyoshi owned. In addition, he also set the record run during this race, his third one as a matter of fact. The first 2 were in open races. Going off of that victory, Miracle decided to get into his first G1 race, the Mile Championship. And he got 3rd. I mean, it's his first G1, so he might be a bit rocky at first. Let's maybe try the Sprinter Stakes next.
1馬身から2馬身、ハスキーハニー2番手、外からマイスーパーマン3番手です。あとは3馬身4馬身下がりまして、ナルシスノワールが出てまいりました。外にはヤマニンゼファーがつけております。あとは桜未来、内をついてレオプラザ、さらには KS ミラクル、外を回りましてはカリスタグローリー、この一段にはパッシングルート、内をついてアドバンスモアです。その後にはキヨイドリーム、第1ルビーは後ろから5番手ぐらい、あとは東亜ディスティニ後ろから3番手、3馬身下がってリンド星が後ろから2番手、これをかわす勢いで5番のナイスパワーが上がっていった。最4コーナー中間を通過して第4コーナーへ向かいます。先頭はトモエリージェント、逃げてリードが首ほど外を並んでまいりました。これがハスキーハニーで第4コーナーをカーブ、外を回ってはマイスーパーマン KS ミラクルが現在4番手ぐらいに上がってきた。内をついているのはレオプラザで直線コースに抜いています。この一段にはナルシスノワールが追い込んできた。おっとちょっとおかしくなった。13番 KS ミラクル故障発生だ。坂を上がって、さあ今度は一気にかわした。先頭は第1ルビー、やはり強い。2番手は接戦ナルシスノワールか。先頭は第1ルビーゴールイン、第1ルビー圧勝です。
Daiichi Ruby won the Sprinter Stakes for 91, followed by Narcisse Noir and Husky Honey. KS Miracle, on the other hand, would suffer an injury during this race. He received a comminuted fracture on his left first phalanx, located close to his hoof, and he slowed down and later collapsed on the turf to be euthanized on the same day. Well, that was quite the ride, right? We went through 3 stories of 3 different racehorses that succumbed to a life-threatening injury and were forced to be euthanized. Now you see why PETA's trying to protest horse racing as a whole. It's a tale as old as time. Using animals for sport or recreation is not exactly ethical. However, even though PETA is all for stopping horse racing entirely, many other organizations, which I think are taking the better route, are trying to make compromises to make horse racing more ethical. Going against PETA's tactic of fear-mongering, an Australian group of activists named Kick Up are trying to debunk the claims PETA, amongst other animal rights activist groups, has about horse racing. A few of the things they have debunked include horses are not forced to run, the whip is not meant to hurt the horse, rather turn its attention back to its jockey, and of course we discussed euthanasia is not a common death, even if the cause for it is a common leg fracture. Aside from Kick Up, many different equine authorities are also responding to the calls of PETA, with the California Horse Racing Board banning hard leather whips in favor of air-cushioned ones, strengthening detection of illegal shocking devices in the Churchill Downs, and many more. Still, PETA is very adamant in abolishing horse racing altogether for ethical reasons, in line with all of its other animal rights initiatives. Considering that statistic about mortality rate in racehorses, however, I don't really see it happening anytime soon. Let's cap this video off with one more story. One of the races Reischauer ran at was at the 1992 Adamakinan, which, although he did pretty bad at it, there was an injury in that race as well. The horse affected here was one named Sanei Thank You, and while her record was middling to say the least, her injury does highlight her a bit more for us. At the home stretch in Nakayama, Sanei Thank You slowed down and stopped after receiving comminuted fractures. Like what we heard with Miracle, this would be ground for euthanasia, but her owner Kiyoshi Iwasaki, no relation to Miracle's owner, wanted to squeeze every last bit of her as he could, as a breeding mare. As a result, she went through extensive surgery to have her legs fixed. It was successful and she lived for another 2 years, succumbing to her injuries October 21st, 1994. While nothing of note came out of Sanei Thank You, it goes to show that, despite it being the easiest and cheapest way out, euthanasia is not just the only way out. If successful enough, and if the injury is minor enough, many horses do simply retire early. And some of the lucky ones get to make their lineage live a bit more. At this point, with deaths decreasing gradually, I think horse racing is getting to a point of being ethical, and PETA didn't need to do all that. But we shouldn't forget all the deaths that have occurred thus far. Here's to an injury-free year of the horse. Gallop on, you majestic creatures. And let's be honest, although depressing, the stories we discussed here are